China want to go to war with the USA? The United States is one of the most powerful countries in the world, and it is not likely that they would start a war with China. However, if a war were to break out between the two countries, who would win? The United States or China? Let's find out. Welcome back to the channel, everyone. In today's video, we will be answering the question, why would China want to go to war with the USA? We will also be discussing the reasons behind the war and who would win if these two superpowers were to go to war. So make sure to watch the video till the end to find out more. Before we start the video, don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you won't miss any of our videos. And do give this video a like if you enjoy it. Reason why. The reason why China might want to go to war with the USA is because of the increasing tensions between the two countries. In recent years, the US has imposed sanctions on China and has also been provoking China by sending military ships and planes near China's coast. This has led to a lot of animosity between the two countries, and it is possible that this could lead to a war. Another reason why China might want to go to war with the US is because of the trade war between the two countries. The US and China have been imposing tariffs on each other's goods, and this has led to a lot of economic pain for both countries. It's possible that this economic pain could lead to a war. States of America and the People's Republic of China are two of the most powerful countries in the world. The US has a population of around 327 million people and a GDP of around $26 trillion. China, on the other hand, has a population of around 1.4 billion people and a GDP of around $28 trillion. Both countries have a nuclear arsenal and a large military budget. They are also both permanent members of the United Nations Security Council. Despite being such powerful countries, the US and China have a complicated relationship. In recent years, the relationship between the two countries has deteriorated significantly. The US has accused China of a variety of things, including intellectual property theft, unfair trade practices, and human rights abuses. China, in turn, has accused the US of being hypocritical and of trying to contain China's rise. Tensions between the two countries have been high in recent years, and there have been fears that the relationship could deteriorate further and potentially lead to conflict. If a war were to break out between the US and China, it would be one of the most destructive wars in history. Both countries have a nuclear arsenal and a large military budget. They are also both technologically advanced and have a large pool of manpower to draw from. There are a few things that China would need to do in order to win a war against the US. First, China would need to be able to project power beyond its borders. This means having a strong navy and air force that can operate in the Pacific Ocean and beyond. China has been rapidly modernizing its military in recent years, and it now has the second largest navy in the world by number of vessels. China also has a large and growing air force with a variety of modern fighters and bombers. However, the US still has the most powerful navy and air force in the world. So China would have a tough challenge ahead of it if it tried to project power beyond its borders. Another thing that China would need to do is to be able to sustain a long war. The US is a very wealthy country, and it has a large industrial base that can produce a lot of military equipment. China would need to be able to sustain a long war in order to compete with the US. To do this, China would need to have a strong economy that can support a large military. China's economy is the second largest in the world by nominal GDP, but it is still significantly smaller than the US economy. In addition, China's economy is more integrated with the global economy than the US economy. This means that China would be more vulnerable to economic sanctions from other countries. Finally, China would need to be able to maintain the support of the international community. The US is a highly respected country, and it has a lot of allies around the world. China, on the other hand, is not as respected, and it does not have as many allies. In fact, many countries view China with suspicion, and there are a lot of countries that are nervous about China's growing power. If China wants to win a war against the US, it needs to be able to maintain the support of at least some countries. Countries' wealth as one, the United States has the largest economy in the world with a GDP of over $20 trillion. China has the second largest economy with a GDP of just under $15 trillion. This means that the United States has around 30% more wealth than China. The United States has a population of around 327 million people, while China's population is around 1.4 billion. This means that China has a population that is nearly 4 times larger than the United States. The United States and China are separated by the Pacific Ocean. The distance between the two countries is around 6,000 miles. This means that if a war were to break out between the two countries, they would have to project their military power across a large body of water. In 2021, the United States spent around $700 billion on its military, while China spent around $250 billion on its military. This means that the United States spends around 3 times more on its military than China. In the world, with around 1.5 million active soldiers. China has the second largest military with around 900,000 active soldiers. This means that China has a military that is around 60% the size of the U.S. military. The United States has a number of strengths that would make it a formidable opponent in a war against China. The U.S. military is the most powerful in the world, and it has a large arsenal of weapons. The U.S. also has a strong economy and a large population. This means that the U.S. would be able to produce a lot of weapons and equipment and also have a large pool of manpower to draw from. Despite its strengths, the U.S. also has some weaknesses that China could exploit. The U.S. is a very decentralized country, and this could allow China to pick its battles and fight the U.S. on its own terms. In addition, the U.S. has a large number of allies around the world, and this could allow China to focus its resources on defeating the U.S. All these factors considered, it is likely that the U.S. would win in a war against China. However, it is important to note that this is just a hypothetical scenario, and the outcome of an actual war between the two countries could be different. The United States has a number of allies around the world that would likely come to its aid if it were to go to war with China. These allies include Japan, South Korea, the Philippines, Australia, and Canada. China also has a number of allies, but they are not as powerful militarily as the U.S. allies. China's allies include Pakistan, North Korea, Russia, and Iran. If a war were to break out between the U.S. and China, it is likely that the U.S. would win. The U.S. has a more powerful military and a stronger economy than China. In addition, the U.S. has a number of allies around the world that would likely come to its aid. Endgame scenario: if the U.S. were to win a war against China, it is likely that China would be severely weakened. The Chinese economy would be in sharp decline, and China would lose much of its power and influence around the world. On the other hand, if China were to win a war against the U.S., it is likely that the U.S. would be severely weakened. The U.S. economy would be in sharp decline, and the U.S. would lose much of its power and influence around the world. So do you think the U.S. would win in a war against China, or do you think China would win? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. That's all for today's video, everyone. What do you think about today's video? Let us know in the comments section below. And please don't forget to like and share this video with your family and friends. Thanks for watching. See you next time.